So I saw some violence at USC spring practice.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Marc, and thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. Whether you're watching me on YouTube or wherever you'd like to download your podcast, we are free, and I appreciate your support. If you are watching on YouTube and you haven't done it yet, I'm kind of wondering why, there's a subscribe button. It's free. Do me a favor, hit it. It would mean a whole heck of a lot. And if you're enjoying the episodes, there's a like button. Don't forget to do that also. And to all of you who have already become a free subscriber, I like to say thank you before we get started, as always. So, I was able to watch USC's football practice on Wednesday, their third spring session of camp. And all I can say is it was glorious, fantastic. They were on full pads, and they're already hitting each other. I'm going to have more on that shortly. But yeah, there was tackling. There's some good stuff going on. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you some of my notes and observations of the third day. How, when I get there, when I arrive at campus, kind of the things I see and jot down, and that, kind of pique my interest. And as we go through practice, what I see, and I try and present it in a, just a very casual form where if I'm telling you a story, you can almost visualize yourself there. And if you want, when you're done making Locked On USC your first listen and your first watch, head over to wearesc.com. We've got a pretty cool subscription special. And we've got a lot of good content, including some recruiting stuff that I might have a couple of nuggets for you at the end of the show. You're going to have to hang around. So, and then in between, I'm going to give you some quotes from the coaches and players. So practice on Wednesday started at 3:30, 3:35. Prompt is the email, as the email told us. So I don't ever ask me why. I just do it. It's part of my DNA. If I'm not early, I'm late. Well, like I said, practice started at 3:30. I was on campus at 1:30. And I just enjoy people watching. So I was hanging out near Heritage Hall, kind of, typing out some notes, thinking about what I want to write about, and thinking, let's just see what's going on. Well, it's midterms right now. Students are walking around kind of in the zombie state, which is funny. Although the parking lots are filled to capacity, which aren't great. I didn't like that very much. So I mentioned the student body is having their midterms right now. Well, that means the guys on the team are going through that as well. But while they're preparing for midterms, they're also practicing today was perfect weather. And it's going to get them ready for the Big Ten or the big conference when they arrive. Because today, 61 degrees when practice started. It was a bit cool, a little bit on the chilly side. The sun and the clouds were kind of arm wrestling with each other, deciding who was going to win. And there was just enough of a breeze, like I said, to let you know that there was a chill in the air. And right when that breeze blew by, Alex Grinch walked by as well. He was on his way from Heritage Hall to the McKay Center. I'm sure to make sure he had everything ready to go for practice. He had all of his notes prepared, ready to rock and roll. Now, like I said, practice started 3:35, 61 degrees. Practice ended around 5:45, and it was much cooler by then. Much cooler than 61 degrees because I was cold. Enough about me, though. So on Tuesday, if you watched yesterday's episode of Locked On USC, I talked about Lincoln Riley's media Zoom session that he held with us. And among the things that we learned was that during the offseason, apparently there were some inquiries with him about some coaches on his staff if they would have been available for other opportunities. Well, I did my own Culkin poll before practice started with certain media members, and it was a 4-person unanimous vote. You can see we went real in depth with this. Everyone agrees. They think Sean Nua was the guy other programs were coming after. But there was actually a pretty big media presence on the day. Everyone wanted to get a peek of the team before Lincoln Riley sends everyone away for spring break for the next 2 weeks. I'm still trying to reconcile his rationale that he explained on Tuesday, but who am I to question the offensive savant? Now, one thing I do want to question in my own mind is when he was on his way to practice, he was walking along pretty good pace, and then all of a sudden he just stopped and he started writing down some notes. And this took about 30 seconds, close to a minute. And I'm thinking at that moment is, what would he stop to think about that he had to write it down? It had to be something important. Now, I mentioned I was hanging out near Heritage Hall. Well, when I was up there, I took a quick peek inside, and this is what I'm going to say. Make sure you're at the spring game, because they are going to be doing a Heisman ceremony celebrating Caleb Williams' Heisman Trophy Award, which gives USC 8. Now, knowing there's 8, when I looked inside Heritage Hall, I only saw 6 mounts where the Heisman trophies are normally positioned. Well, it's going to be interesting to see where they put the other 2. I'm talking about Reggie Bush's and as well Caleb's. And here's something else. When are they going to retire Caleb's jersey? Are they going to put it up in the peristyle this year? Or are they going to actually wait till he's done playing football? Don't forget, 2 guys are wearing number 13 this year. Mason Cobb being the other one. So when I asked where the Heismans were, they're being used in other ways right now because USC is hosting a lot of recruits around campus right now. So Heismans are being utilized in different ways. Among some of the recruits I saw, Ty Anthony Smith, who I believe is a linebacker. There was a 2026 quarterback, Kane Archer, and there was a bunch of other guys. I couldn't read their name tags, so I apologize. And keep in mind, when there are recruits on campus, Annie Hansen, Coach Zach Hansen's wife, tight ends coach, she is the most popular person on USC staff. It was kind of funny. She is in constant motion. Well, her golf cart slowed down just enough for her to kind of jump off in time so she could head off in another direction. And I think she had to go retrieve another recruit who had just shown up. Class of 2023 offensive lineman, Tobias Raymond. He was at practice today. And let me just tell you right now, he's not going to play this year. And that's okay. I don't think anybody anticipated him contributing this year. And there was a lot of people who wondered why he was even offered, considering he was only a 3-star. But when you look at him, you can see offensive tackle written all over him. Give him a year in the weight room. I mean, he's tall. He's got long arms, broad shoulders. And one thing I did notice is after practice, Jonah Monheim and Elijah Page, who was already enrolled and participating in spring camp, they were taking a few moments to talk with Tobias. So the future is bright with the offensive line. I mentioned that the parking lots were packed. Well, if I know you guys don't get to come to practice, but if you're familiar with the layout, you have campus proper, you have McClintock Boulevard, and then you have Howard Jones Field right across the street. Well, Garrison Madden, linebacker, he was trying to cross McClintock. By the way, tall, rangy, bow-legged. And I'm glad that he is a really fast guy with agility and speed because he needed it. He needed every bit of those reflexes and dexterity. He almost got taken out by a student on an electronic skateboard who was reading social media. One of the Yellow Jackets had to step in front of the skateboarder to make sure he didn't take out Garrison Madden. But Garrison was on the spot and hop, skipped, and jumped away in time as well. Raiola Brown, he was pretty hyped and ready to go for this session of spring camp. When he got to Goo Gate, he tapped it twice with a couple of loud "Let's go." He was ready, and he jumps right into. Well, actually, I don't get to see what he just jumped right into because they shut the gate once players step through. Caleb Williams and Malachi Nelson, they came to practice together. I won't say they were racing, but they had a pretty good sprint going on. And it's been a few months since I've seen Malachi up close and personal. He's going to be he's a specimen. By this time next year, when that body just goes from freshman to sophomore, you're going to see that natural progression in his body. He's going to be big. Not quite 6'5", but he's pushing 6'4" easily. Who else did I see? Oh, after practice, I saw Brendan Radley Hiles, who, by the way, you can officially call him coach now. He was hanging out at practice observing last year. Now it's official. I think he's a G. Tulia Pelotu, he was at practice, hanging out, watching after spending his week at the Combine. And I have great news, just a reminder for everybody. This is USC's last year in the Pac-12 conference. And that great news came to me when I saw the Pac-12 officials who are working practice showing up in their black gym shorts and black and white striped shirts. And they just said, last year. Brought a smile on my face. Now, the first thing that struck me immediately, one of the first impressions I got was when the players were leaving the McKay Center, going to Howard Jones, when they were leaving the building, I mentioned they were wearing full pads already, third day. That I thought there was a longer acclimation period, but apparently not. And the other thing, the player size. This is where my attention really was focused. Some of the guys look the part that we've been talking about. Devin Tompkins, Malachi Crawford. Those guys look their part. And then there are others who were much bigger than I anticipated. Christian Roland Wallace. He's got arms that go on forever. And not just long, thick. He's got tree trunks. Latrell McCutcheon, Caleb Bullock, Damani Jackson, all three of them physically bigger from the waist up. All three of them still have some bird legs. Although Latrell, he got a little bit thicker, but it was noticeable among all three of them. Much bigger upstairs, so hopefully that helps when it comes to tackling. Mason Cobb, due to stout. He looks like a thick middle linebacker. He's listed at 6'0" maybe, but he's all of 230 pounds. What do they say? He's got a lot of junk in the trunk. A lot going on down below the waist. So good leverage for tackling, and I hope he's able to put that to good use. Minor adjustment to the way special team groups are set up. Last year at practice, you had the punters and punt returners immediately, the first group you see when you walk through, and then the kick returners were on the far side. They swapped. So now, first thing I saw was freshman Zachariah Branch was working with both groups, as was Dorian Singer, Marion Peterson, Quentin Joyner, Raiola Brown, MJ3, Michael Jackson III, Taj Washington, Makai Lemon. By the way, Peterson, huge. Big running back. You guys are going to like him when you see him up close and personal. I was really looking forward to seeing Marshawn Lloyd, and I was not disappointed. dude's built different. USC has not had a running back like that on the roster in a while. I don't think he has any body fat on him. I mentioned Sean Nua earlier. He's going to have his hands full of spring camp. His position group had at least 10. It was 10 players deep, easily. And there were 2 more that even weren't participating. So that group is going to be even bigger. Out of that group, who I noticed, walking into practice, Jack Sullivan, transfer from Purdue, old school, as is his mustache. Kyan Bars, he looks like a nose tackle, defensive tackle. And he said after practice, that's going to be his role. I had a chance to speak to him for a couple of minutes. What else did we see? Oh, man. So as big as the defensive line group was, Roy Manning's rush end group, kind of small. Romello Height, Jameel Muhammad, Sam Green was over there, and as was Garrett Pomerantz. And there was a couple guys missing from that group. You guys can figure it out. Names I haven't mentioned. And we were given a full 30 minutes to watch practice before the ripcord was pulled. And they said, all right, that's it. Got to go. But I mentioned there was tackling. And it wasn't just shedding the blocker and attack that rolling donut drill that you've seen me post before. Although they did that too. They actually had physical man-on-man tackling guys to the ground. So while they were doing that, shedding the blocker and running after that rolling donut and hitting it with fervor and tackling it, they were doing the same drill, and then they would finish it with a kind of an angle pursuit towards the sideline, and they had to 2-arm wrap up the guy below the waist and bring him to the ground. So it was good to see that happening before we were asked to leave. Also, the hustle drill that I like to talk about, where you kind of get a sense of who's first team, second team, third team, the way they run out there, they line up, balls. They simulate a snap, and then they run for 3 or 4 yards, stop, drop, roll, run back, line up again, and then they run to the corner of the end zone and break down. One thing I did notice, Shane Lee and Rajon Davis were running together, first team, linebacker. Just saying. What else did I say? Oh, offensive lineman, Jared Kingston. He was a fun interview. He was asked about Coach Josh Henson, and he basically called him a technician. And what's neat about Jared Kingston is he's got a unique perspective. And I asked him about that after practice because he was recruited by Clay McGuire up at Washington State. And then last year, Clay McGuire got to coach him up. So I would say that Kingston is probably similar in size to Justin Dedich. Not bad. There's a lot more that I got to go over. But first, we got to talk about FanDuel. You know what? Yeah, let's get to FanDuel and I'll come back because we are going deep into this. I don't want to run out of time. We're at the midway point of the NBA season. It's here. Now is the perfect time. Get over there. Download FanDuel because they are America's #1 sports book. And you want to do it as a new customer because you're going to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Not bad, right? So just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe. It's secure. It's really super easy to use. And while you're over there, you're going to be able to pick out who's making the most threes. All sorts of prop bets that you can get into. And you can also combine your bets for a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets back when you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we're going to get right back into this. So, a lot going on at, before I get back into it, I always have to say thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. Make sure you're checking out our second podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Plus, you're going to hear it from the big name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. All right, so as I mentioned, there was a lot going on on the third day of spring camp. And even though I was in there for almost 30 minutes, I spent maybe 30 seconds watching the offense. I'll try and focus on that more when we come back in 13 days, when the team comes back from spring break. I did notice offensive lineman Cooper Lovelace after practice. He was running rim sprints by himself, and it was his choice. He wasn't being, this wasn't punishment or anything. You can tell when there's punishment going on and when someone's just putting in work. Remember, last year it wasn't extra work; it was just putting in work. So it was just interesting to see Cooper, who many don't consider going to have an opportunity to play on the offensive line. Well, coaches notice this type of stuff. I noticed it. I also noticed Taylor Mays after practice chatting it up with Shane Lee and safety Bryson Shaw. The big takeaway you want to have from practice was everything was moving at a really good pace, and that's why I didn't get a chance to focus on the offense. Plus, everyone knows that the story is defense right now. I don't think anybody's worried about the offense. What I took away from practice was the pace. It was moving, and it seemed like it was moving much more quickly than last year, which makes sense. Second year in the system for most of these guys. So, like I said, next time I'm at practice, I'll try and get you guys some notes and observations on the guys on offense. My focus was on defense and seeing the guys coming out to practice. And as you can see, I'm already running out. I'm 20 minutes into this, and I haven't even gotten to any of the quotes. So we're going to jump into that right now. So the first thing, Josh Henson, offensive line coach, offensive coordinator. Well, at least on paper, we know Lincoln Riley calls the plays. He was asked about two of his newest offensive linemen, Michael Tarquin and Jarrett Kingston, and how they're both doing after 3 practices. Quote, a lot of potential. They care. They're into it. They want to be good. So that's a step in the right direction. Every O-line coaches things differently. So I've got to get them into my way of thinking and how to approach blocks and different things. But overall, for the first 3 days, assignment-wise and effort-wise, and the things that are prerequisites to be good, those are all there. We just got to keep working on the details, end quote. That says a lot. It really does. It's like, you know what? You guys are asking me, how do these guys look after 3 days? Give them a chance to learn the playbook and to get to understand my style of coaching. Makes perfect sense. Jonah Monheim, he's been coached by Josh Henson for years, so he knows his style. After practice, he talked about the team's mantra going into this year. And he said, quote, Coach Riley's message has been, we did a lot of good things last year. We made a big step in improvement. Really, we did all that just to win games. That was a winning mentality, winning habits. We now have to build a championship mentality. Championship habits. Everything just has to take a step up. Weight room, conditioning, field, technique, habits, film study, going to class, everything that we do, keeping that end goal in mind. Assistant head coach Dennis Simmons was asked about his wide receivers. Specifically, Zachariah Branch's name came up and his unique traits. Quote, where do you want me to start? He's extremely strong for his size. He's incredibly fast for his size. And for a short guy, he's able to extend and expand his catch ranges. and he can go from 0 to 100 really, really, really quick. I love when coaches or somebody uses the when you go to very, 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 or really, 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 anytime you emphasize something 3 times, that's a good thing. That's a USC rule. Quarterback Caleb Williams, he has another job this year, as if, everything else on his plate wasn't enough. This year, he's now going to be taking the younger quarterback under his wing, Malachi Nelson, and he's kind of adjusting to this year to how to go about that. And he said this year so far it's been a little different with trying to help the young guy out, Malachi Nelson, and being right behind him. I normally stand right behind him just in case. He's done a good job so far of getting everything down, but just in case he needs some help or anything like that, it also helps me what I've been trying to accomplish in being a coach on the field. I'm able to be out there and Coach Riley's on the sideline. Today, and this is a kind of a funny little anecdote, I was on the sideline and Malachi went out there and Coach Riley was like, "Are you going to go help him?" And I had just kind of forgotten because last year and the past couple of years, I haven't had to do that. So it's a new role for me, which is awesome and something that I'm taking on full steam. End quote. Now, what I loved about that was Caleb basically just told his head coach, "Oops, my bad. I'll go pick up, little Jimmy from football practice now. I forgot all about him." So I don't know. It's if you understand the relationship between Lincoln and Caleb can get away with that this time. I wouldn't make a habit of it though. So it was just a funny moment after practice that Caleb was describing. Mason Cobb had high praise for a fellow transfer, new teammate, following practice on Wednesday. Quote, Marshawn Lloyd, he's the real deal. I'm telling you guys right now, he's the real deal. He's just explosive. He's quick, strong. He just works hard. I like hearing that. If you've seen the picture that we've put up over there at wearesc.com, we've got a lot of great photos. You got to go check it out. Marshawn is just built different. Big, strong, thick. Like I said, no body fat. There was a lot going on there. I am literally running out of time, so I will carry this over to our next episode of Locked on USC. But I did say that I had some recruiting information I want to talk about. So real quick, before we get out of here, after talking with someone on Wednesday, my confidence level with Deuce Robinson becoming a USC Trojan, really high. Really high. Just going to leave it there. And I'm going to leave it there with Dylan Raiola, quarterback, class of 24. He is at the same high school as Deuce Robinson. Confidence level, not quite at the level of Deuce Robinson, but it's up there. I just wish Deuce would just pull the trigger already. Let's get it over with. Show up. Get on campus. Look, there you go. That's the recruiting information I have for you. Not a lot, but I thought you might find that interesting. And like I said, a lot more to cover from spring camp through the lens of me that we'll go over in our next episode of Locked on USC, because we come at you 5 days a week and we give you everything we can in 30 minutes or less. And there was just too much going on at spring camp. Practice day 3 for me to try and fit into one episode. So until our next episode, everyone, you know what to do.